Della, thank y'all so much for coming out today. You guys are all amazing. What's going on, everybody? Once again, I'm your host, Corey Cambridge. Thank y'all so much for coming out to Propelify. Feels good to see so many beautiful faces. Hello, what's going on? We are out here. Also, give a nice round of applause for DJ Linda Lee on the ones and the twos. There we go, there we go. Don't be shy, y'all, don't be shy. All right, so I want to introduce my next guest, my main man, Matt Britton. He is the CEO of CrowdTap and the author of a book called Youth Nation. And if you're nice to him, he may spit a freestyle for you, if you're nice to him. So give a round of applause to my main man, Matt Britton.
Yo, keep the beats going. My name is B and I drop mad beats. Okay. I feel like I'm in the opening act for Lollapalooza, 11 a.m. gig. How many millennials do we have in the audience? A lot of millennials in the house. So I spent my career helping big brands market to younger people. And what's abundantly clear right now is there's just a huge gap between the people that are making big business decisions in the business world and the people who are actually changing the future in the business world. I deal with a lot of CMOs, CEOs, etc., a lot of which are still Gen X and Boomers, who in my mind are a different species than Gen Y and Gen Z. Everyone says, well, why is millennials such a big deal? The reason that millennials are a big deal is that they were the first generation that grew up with the internet in the household, which makes their brains wired completely different than everybody else who was born before them. When I grew up, I'm a Gen Xer, although I certainly act like a millennial. I didn't have access to the internet. I had to rock out with Encyclopedia Britannica. I had to call people. I even used a rotary phone. People growing up now today, as you all know, have access to information at speed and vastness that's really unparalleled. And when these CMOs and CEOs make business decisions and they're disconnected, they're coming from a place of being out of the loop. It's not even just the CEOs and CMOs, it's really anybody in the business world who isn't in touch with what's going on right now. I was at the American Marketing Association conference about 4 months ago in Chicago, 400 people in the audience. I said, by a show of hands, how many people here have ever heard of WeWork? Tenant of commercial real estate. I know a lot of you guys at the Propelify Innovation Festival have heard of it, but at the AMAs, I had 4 out of 400 people raise their hands. So obviously that just shows the lack of information. So I have a very short period of time today, and it's really hot out here, but I'm just gonna try to keep you guys engaged. I wanna try to draw as many people walking in. My Twitter handle is @MattyB. I need to crowdsource some photography, so if a bunch of you guys post pictures of me, I'll send you guys all a copy of the book, just because I want some pictures of me on stage, because if you don't take pictures of you doing something, did it really exist? That's probably not. So I'm gonna go through the alphabet, every letter of the alphabet. And for every letter, I'm gonna tell you about a trend that millennials are driving moving forward, right? And and if you guys wanna hit me up on Twitter, I'll send you the list so you don't need to write it down. But a trend that millennials are driving that I feel like is largely misunderstood by the business population in general. Okay, let's rock it out. A is access over ownership. Basically, this generation has no interest in spending money to buy things. And even the place that millennials have traditionally spent the most amount of discretionary expenditures, cars and housing. Cars. Young people just don't want to spend money on cars anymore. With the cost of gas, tolls, parking, insurance versus the ubiquity of Uber and pushing a button, the car ownership is dropping dramatically, as is homes. Buying a house with Airbnb and people wanting to be mobile. And first of all, the price of real estate has gone up so much that the rite of passage, buying a car and buying a house, which used to be the first steps in the American dream, right? 2-car garage, white picket fence, that's taken a U-turn. Instead, people have stayed in cities, which is my C. We'll get in that in a second. Let's start with the B, the barbell economy. If you're in a business, you do not want to be stuck in the middle. An announcement last week, Macy's closing 30% of their stores. Why? The wealthy sector does not want to shop at Macy's. The value sector cannot afford it. Any company that finds themselves in the middle, that doesn't pick a side in this country where the middle class is getting rapidly eroded, is going to find themselves in nowhere's land. So what do I mean by that? On the value side, you have Dollar Store, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Walmart, Vizio that sells flat screens for $200 a month, winning on supply chain innovation, trying to give people the best, most cheapest product possible.
with the withering middle class, there's going to be people with the haves and have-nots in this country. For the first time since the roaring 20s, 0.1% of the population controls nearly 25% of the wealth. Not saying it's good, saying it's just the way it is. Luxury side, Blade that shuttles people from New York City to the Hamptons, wouldn't mind going today. Coach, Michael Kors, Four Seasons, JetSmarter that is a private jet membership club. Those companies cannot sell memberships and products fast enough. Do not be caught in the middle. Companies need to pick a side, and you're going to start to see it in every single industry. The Toyota Camry in the middle is not going to really fare well anymore. They're going to have to say, are we going to be luxury and lean to the Lexus brand, or are we going to try to compete with Kia? Because in the middle, they're going to find that their buyer is waning and waning. C stands for cities. Since millennials do not want the car and they not want the house, they want to stay in cities, as most of you guys probably know, because we're staring at the biggest city in the country across the river. Why are they staying in cities? Well, that's where the action is. In the 24-hour news cycle, you're not seeing pictures of people rocking it out in Long Island, okay? Real estate prices in the suburbs have only grown 3 to 5% in the last 10 years. Where in Brooklyn, they're up 150%. The livable boundaries of cities keep getting pushed further and further and further out. And it's not just Brooklyn and Hoboken in New York. It's places like Wynwood in Miami and Oakland outside of San Francisco. Millennials know that cities are becoming safer, schools are becoming better, and they imagine themselves having a life in the city. And that has a trickle-down effect in so many areas of this economy. So don't count out the fact that retail is going to soon be going away, because as the prices of real estate go higher and higher, there's not really a business model for mainstream retailers to actually be able to pay for a retailer on Main Street. What's taking over it? Services. You have things like Glam Squad, where girls can have people come over and get their hair and their makeup done and do blowouts. Why would a company have to pay for expensive real estate prices on Main Street when they can just have a distributed on-demand business model by pushing a button and have people coming towards you? So cities is going to continue to be a huge growing factor with this generation. D stands for DIFTY, which is a quote I had in my book, which stands for Did It for the Instagram, which is people, this generation, building their personal brands is done through experiences. It's things like Color Run, where you're going and taking a picture, or something called Mission Peak in Fremont, California, where in the last 5 years has been plagued with overcrowding and traffic. Why? Has hiking become much more valuable or popular? No, it's because everybody wants to take that picture at the top of the mountain to build their personal brand. If you didn't take a photo, it really never existed. And what I'm saying is many young people actually doing things, not so much to really enjoy it, but just to prove to everybody else that they were there. I know friends that never work out, that go to Tough Mudder to pay $300 to climb under barbed wire to show people that they're rough and rugged. I know people that have bad seats at an NBA game and they zoom and zoom and zoom to make sure that they have, you know, the front row seats, or at least that people think they do. So DIFTY's not going to stop, because people know that their personal brand is not built by cars or watches or sneakers and houses, but it's the experiences that they're able to gain. E stands for education. Education is totally fucked in this country. And the biggest reason why is that the people are teaching are not in touch with where education is going. They are not teaching the real world skills that people need to know. And it's actually the opposite. Most people go to college because they think it's the right thing to do, and when they come out of college, they are in so much debt that they actually can't pursue the dreams that they want to pursue to begin with. The education system needs to dramatically change. I think we're going to go back to a world where it's going to be much more skill and trade based, meaning you have to go deep into an art or deep into a science, because anything else is going to be offshored or outsourced to Costa Rica or China or you name it. What does going deep in an art mean? Being smart, being creative, coming up with ideas that a machine can't do. Being deep into science is understanding how they use the machines. But if you want a career in middle management where you're going to work your way up the corporate ladder, you're going to find yourself in a really bad position very quickly. So that's why I tell parents of young people going to the world, go deep into an art, go deep into a science. But what's the #1 major in colleges? College of General Studies, liberal arts. You're learning basically a whole lot of nothing that's not applicable coming out. Education needs to change. G stands for gentrification. Our major cities are getting pushed outward and outward. Bed-Stuy, place that's crime-ridden, a couple years ago, now selling $2 million houses, right? Townhouses. And what's interesting about when gentrification happens and Main Street business owners get pushed out is when new businesses are built, one of 3 things are built. A Chase, right? A Dwayne Reed, or a Starbucks. Why? Because those are things that people need within the hour, right? You need your money, you need your coffee, or you need your pharmaceuticals. But anything else, you're just gonna have Amazon deliver the next day. And that's why there's not really a business model anymore. I was in Best Buy, I wrote a blog post about this because I didn't have my earphones and I had a conference call, and I hate doing this. Some people say it gives you brain cancer, not sure, that's not really the point. But I was waiting, and there was one woman ahead of me, and I waited for 14 minutes to buy this pair of Bose earphones because Best Buy was struggling to get the rewards number into the system. And I got fed up, and I went down the elevator of this massive 3-story complex that Best Buy has in Soho. And on the elevator ride down, I ordered it on Amazon, and it was ordered by the time I left the store. So sure, I didn't have the headphones for the next 24 hours, but in a couple of years, I'll actually be able to have it delivered to me in 5 minutes. And that's why that Best Buy 3-story complex is gonna be an apartment complex in 3 to 5 years. No doubt about it, it's just how it's gonna happen. H stands for hardware. Hardware is becoming something that's more important, not just to companies in technology, but to any company. Take a company that makes laundry detergent, okay? What's happening now is any product's being commoditized. Retailers are building private label like Walmart and Target, and if you're gonna buy a brand name laundry detergent, what's sold at private label is really just as good. And just how Apple said they need to own the whole ecosystem, if you sell laundry detergent, then you should probably make laundry machines. Because if you can install the laundry machine and it has a sensor and it reorders the laundry detergent, then you've actually created an ecosystem where you can sell over time. That's the model that any company that sells packaged goods or consumable products need to go into. They need to own the whole ecosystem. Apple really paved the way for that. It's no longer about a point solution. Look like a company like Samsung. They make TVs, but they don't have an ecosystem. They don't lock in the user. Now they're just in a race to the bottom to try to make the cheapest possible TV. And as Vizio's technology gets better and better, is a consumer really going to spend 5x for what they can buy for Vizio? Maybe not. I stands for artificial intelligence. Machines are getting smarter and smarter. I saw a story the other day that Google, with its translate tool, is trying to obviously translate one language to the other, but there's some languages that just don't translate. And through Google's artificial intelligence, they've actually created a whole new language, the language of Google, that can act as an intermediary between the two languages that cannot compete with one another. To me, that's a great example of the power of artificial intelligence. For all we know, the whole world might be speaking the language of Google in 15 years. J stands for Joe's Pizza, and this stands for the democratization of opportunities, okay? Right now, if you're a small business, you have the same opportunity to advertise to the right person at the right time as a massive business. And as television moves into what I think will be a giant iPad hanging on your wall, you're gonna see 8, 9, 10-year-old kids going up to TVs and trying to swipe them all the time. Joe's Pizza will be able to programmatically buy an ad during the Super Bowl, targeting people within 1 mile of their location. That's democratization. It makes it easy for opportunity. It's not just the big companies that can be on TV. As everything becomes programmatic, you can spend $5 and reach the right consumer at the right time. If there's one thing I tell you guys all to do if you haven't done already, spend $5 and launch an ad on Facebook and target one small segment of consumers. You have no downside. See how it works. It's changing the world because you can actually make sure that every dollar goes to exactly who you want that dollar to go to. K stands for the Kardashians. The Kardashians, I made a statement social media week a couple of weeks ago that they're gonna have, and people leave, exit stage right when you hear the Kardashians, that's cool, I get it. They are gonna have a bigger impact on media when it's all said and done than the Beatles did. Not saying they're better musicians, but their scale and their reach and their model of selling shit is actually the true definition of what influence really is. That word influence is thrown around over and over and over again, but when a Kardashian posts makeup on an Instagram post, they actually sell things out and websites break down. Why? Because they spent their whole career first building an audience of people that really care about them, okay? They watched them on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, they got involved with their life, and the Kardashians got into Snapchat, and it became more and more voyeuristic. And then they have an army of young women who care about what they do, what they feel, what they say, and what they buy. And when people feel that way about people, that's when things sell. If you want to sell stuff, you call them. You don't call News Corp or Viacom or big media. People are the new brands. They now have the power, not the big publishers anymore. L stands for LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is just getting started in terms of their power at connecting the business network. A lot of people write it off because it's not sort of in vogue or cool, but if you want to be seen in the business world, that is the new resume. For a lot of you guys, you actually know that, but for some of you who didn't, I thought I'd throw that in there because I run into too many smart people who don't spend enough time on LinkedIn, and I think they should. M stands for marriage. People are getting married later and later and later in life. The biggest reason is Tinder, obviously, but not just Tinder. People are staying in cities, women are working later in life, cities are more expensive, you need more of a dual income household. People who are 40 are acting 30, there's 50-year-olds at Burning Man and that scene being socially accepted. So people have no interest in kind of settling down, moving out to the burbs, and since they're getting married later and later and later in life, the notion of the American family is going to be widely different. You know, we're not going to have as many kids that are being born. The population, I think, is going to level off. When you're selling to mom is not younger anymore. The notion of a family is going to be much more of a wealthy thing. If you have a family in a barbell economy, especially in the cities, it's actually becoming more and more of a status symbol based upon the cost of raising a family in the city. N stands for network television. I do not think network TV will exist in 5 years. NBC, CBS, ABC, young people, Gen Y and Gen Z, they don't tune in to must-see TV on Thursday night, right? At 8 o'clock to watch Seinfeld. Those were the good old days. People are watching and time-shifting every single program possible. The one thing holding up television, network television right now, is the National Football League, the most watched live program amongst male and female viewers, which is why they command billion-dollar deals with major networks. Besides that, and the Grammys and Oscars, everything else is time-shifted. Yet brands still spend a majority of money during the upfronts giving money to big TV providers. But in the world moving forward, where the network TVs aren't there to get $100 million checks during the upfront, where is the money going to go to? How are brands going to be able to work in a fragmented world? And what business opportunities does that produce for everyone who's at this conference? That's the question I have, because that's the tipping point that's going to happen. One day there were CDs when you walked into Walmart. The next day they were gone when iTunes was invented. One day there were DVDs, then they were gone when iTunes and Netflix started to stream. I think that same dramatic impact is going to happen in network television, and I think it's going to be really fascinating to see. O stands for Oculus Rift, or virtual reality, which I think, frankly, is very, very overplayed. I think this is a note, it reminds me when 3D TVs were coming out, and everyone thought that was the next big thing. There's not been hardware that's been able to be spread out to the masses yet. There's not the applications that consumers really need. I do think it's going to come in niche areas like communications and gaming. Why travel to Taiwan when you can have a business meeting with people in high def? But for the most part, I think virtual reality is very far away. Too many people are focused on that stuff, but they don't know how to actually do the blocking and tackling that's needed for today's world. P stands for Pokemon Go. Who played Pokemon Go and chased little creatures around Central Park? I know there's more of you guys out there. Because there was like a zombie week in New York City when Pokemon Go first blew up, where everyone was chasing these little characters. For those of you who don't know what it is, you look through a phone and it overlays a game on top of a real world scenario, and you actually earn points. That game went very high, it was like top 10 on the App Store, and it flamed out. Just because people have better things to do with their lives. But what that showed you is the power of augmented reality. The power that one day I'll be able to put my camera over all of you and it overlays to all of your faces. Okay? So those of you who are texting during it, I'd be able to come back and go after you afterwards, right? Or if I'm in a store and I'm walking down the aisle, I could actually see how much things are. And maybe I'll just buy it on Amazon, which is what people are going to do, which is another reason why retailers are in bad shape. Because once augmented reality comes out, and Google just had a big announcement on it yesterday, why would anybody pay $1 more than they need to? Why are retailers going to be able to mark anything up? If I actually go over every product and tells me the cheapest place I can get it, I can hit a button and have it sent to me, then retailers are just going to become giant showrooms. And the smart brands like Tesla understand that retailers are showrooms. Because you don't see them with massive complex, with massive parking lots in the suburbs. They have a 2,500 square foot footprint where they're selling Teslas, but they have 2 vehicles on display, and they capture your information, and they build relationships, and they ship you your car. That's how car dealerships are going to work in the future. Not these massive tri-state Ford dealerships with huge parking lots, because this generation isn't really going out there. But then again, I don't think people are going to be buying cars, which I spoke about earlier. Q stands for Q-score. Q-score is something that's used in the advertising industry and looking at celebrity sponsors or endorsers, which basically says how high of a Q-score influence that they have. Obviously, Michael Jordan, high Q-score, LeBron on sports. What you saw with the Pepsi Kendall Jenner fiasco is actually leaning into too much of Q-score just from a quantitative standpoint, but not a qualitative. Meaning, sure, she has a ton of reach. Sure, she's hot. Sure, millennials know her. but she does not have influence over social responsibility. If it was a fashion ad by Maybelline or L'Oreal, putting her in something like that, a spot like that, would be great. But having her be somebody who's all of a sudden an authority on social responsibility is a miss. It's not just about people's reach or influence, it's what they're influential for. How do they build that influence? And then the brands that can fit into them, that's who calls them. It's not just because somebody has a lot of reach, you should actually do a deal with them, and that's what you're seeing more and more of. S is for Snapchat. I did a ton of interviews last week about the future of Snapchat. Here's my take on Snapchat. It is right now, it's a one-point solution. Why Snapchat blew up is that you had a lot of young people on Facebook using Facebook Messenger and texting to share information, but they didn't want to see what they were saying to their bae at 2 a.m. So, as a result, they went to Snapchat because they knew it was a safe place, and the one-on-one ephemeral text messaging took off. Then, basically, Snapchat went to a one-to-many stories approach, which is basically kind of a news feed. But you know what? That's something that's very duplicatable, which is why Instagram duplicated. And then they also do Discover, which is sort of like you can see ESPN or BuzzFeed content. But young people don't want to go to Snapchat to see that type of content. So is Snapchat valuable? Yes. A lot of young people are moving from the 4 static icons at the bottom of your iPhone, the phone icon out, and the Snapchat icon down as their de facto way of communicating. But the problem with that in a business model is that there's really no native place for advertisements in one-on-one texting. You don't want to text somebody and actually have to see a spot in between. So that's problematic. So why I don't think Snapchat's going to go away anytime soon, I do not think it's the next Facebook. And I think it's laughable that Wall Streeters, who I was on a panel last week at CNBC with 5 other experts telling mainstream America why Snapchat's great. And at the end I said, how many of you guys have ever used Snapchat? And no one raised their hand. And that's the crazy echo chamber we have when tech companies go public, is these people don't understand the business. They look at fundamentals and they try to put it in these categories. But in reality, we're in a world that nothing really fits into a category anymore with this innovation. U stands for universities. I spoke about education earlier. I think that the college debt, college loan model needs to be reinvented. I think people should think about skipping college if they think there's an opportunity to jump in and actually get their whole, because learning is everywhere. There's so many opportunities where you can get information and be empowered with information, and the degree doesn't mean shit anymore, to me at least as an employer. I don't look at resumes. I've been burned by Harvard people. I've been wowed by community college people. And I just think that what happens is nobody wants to be the one kid that didn't go to college, and because of it, they rack up a ton of debt, and then they can't live the life that they want to live. And when it comes down to it, your best time to actually have financial freedom is between when you're in the age of 21 to 27. That sets the future of your life. You go one of 2 ways. You go to work for corporate America and hope you're going to work your way up the corporate ladder. But what happens when that company gets bought or disrupted by a new technology, or your boss sucks, or there's so many different things that can happen, and all of a sudden you're set back again and again. You're putting your future into somebody else's hands because you want to live in a good apartment, right? And you want to be able to go to Coachella. Don't make that mistake if you're 21 to 27. Figure out what you love, figure out where the path is to sell direct, and be a freelancer. And by W, I don't even know where I am with the language, I have no screen here, but I'm just rocking it out. W is for WeWork. WeWork really is about the freelancer world. It's about collaborative workspaces. For a couple $100, you can have a desk next to a bunch of other people in an environment that rivals Google and be empowered to be your own entrepreneur. That's where things are headed. X, I gotta rock out 3 letters left. X stands for experiences. Experiences basically is the new stuff, okay? The status update is the new status symbol, okay? And people are gonna wanna seek out experiences as a way to build their personal brand. Growing up, Gen Xers, Boomers, if they want to show everybody that they actually hiked the Amazon River, they would have to actually take a photo album and hope that people would see it and stand on a shoebox, right? But now I can show it to people at scale, and that's why experiences are building personal brands. I did a panel with Millennials a couple weeks ago. I asked them all, what is their favorite app? Every single one said a travel app is one of their favorite apps. Like Get the Flight Out, which is on Friday, you can actually search the furthest place you can travel for the cheapest amount of money. Oh, it's $300 round trip to Budapest. I guess we're going to Budapest, pack up. Sounds crazy, but it's about the bucket list and traveling. Y is for YouTube. YouTube really is the closest thing we have towards a new model of TV, because in the world that people are the new publishers, they're going to be the ones that build audiences, and they're going to be extremely powerful. And there are so many 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids that have bigger reach than Us Weekly and Newsweek and these magazines. It will blow your mind. And Z stands for zebra, the Z is always the hardest one to do. X I kind of cheated with experiences, but skip that over. Z is for zebra because they look all the same, these consumers from far away. But when you get closer and closer, like zebras, you see they all have different stripes, which is why targetability, personalization matters. Have the greatest time today. Stay cool, Hoboken. Love y'all. Thank you very much.
One more round of applause for my main man, Britton, everybody. Once again, I'm your host, Corey Cambridge.